obviously don't feel like you can legislate crime away or mental illness, and you are actually infringing upon the rights of many law-abiding citizens in the state of Rhode Island, and that many of us do own the firearms that are actually listed within your assault weapons ban. To operate properly. So we end up having problems with stovepipes and jams. That makes it an unsafe environment for women. Okay, thank you so much. Bye.
Well, that was
that sucked.
Well, listen, you're live on the air right now, so tell us how you really feel. Well, there you go. Mr. Knight needed to hear more. There you go. Well, folks, if you're just joining right now, I believe we're live. We are the Coalition, and we're bringing right on. You caught the tail end of Brenda Jacob, her testimony. Brenda, of course, is from the Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle Association, and the purpose of our conversation tonight is to kind of let's be blunt. The big media in town is going to give this a minute or two. They won't go with the visuals. They won't really cover any of the testimony or any of the foolish moments because they weren't really paying attention. So what the goal is tonight is first with Brenda Jacob and possibly later on Jen Moffitt to bring folks up on to date as to what really happened. Not the pretensies, not the fakesies, what really happened tonight. So Brenda, I know it's been, as my kids would say, a hella long day. But let's bring us through the day. When did you folks start, pulling it together this morning? You've been up every night, virtually all night this week, organizing, catalyzing. Right. And it's you look wonderful. No one would know. So you look like you're ready to go to battle again tomorrow. How about we all meet around 7 a.m. at the State House, huh? Not so much. But something tells me you probably have a training class or something going on right now, or at 9 o'clock tomorrow. And the other thing with you outdoors types, I'm a city kid. You outdoors types are like, you're all about starting at like 6 a.m. Someday you'll explain that to me. Me, I get started around 8:30 or 9. I have a cup of coffee, read 4 or 5 newspapers. But let's get serious for a second. How did today go? Start us from the very beginning. I know that folks did show up to a certain amount of folks did show up to the State House. It was not a rally per se. It was just, I think, more of an emotional outpouring of how people feel about their right to bear arms, their self-defense, and their hunting and fishing lifestyle. Give us the straight shot.
Yeah. So about having the people there, we wanted to make sure that we were prepared just in case the other side had people on the ground. So we decided to have a few people out there kind of doing a honk and wave type thing, letting them know. So many of these people really miss being up at the State House, believe it or not, because that's our camaraderie. That's our people. And when we have 6,000 people at the State House, that's like a giant homecoming for us. I always kid about one day the fire marshal tried to shut us down and he's like, well, you can't possibly know all these people. And I looked around and I'm like, well, actually, yeah, I do. So you would be surprised. But yep. So we started early today, getting prepared and everything. And then with the hearing started at 1 and we had to listen and endure all of the rhetoric that was spread by a lot of the people that were presenting these bills, mainly Justine Caldwell and, a few of the others that just, they tried to play on the heartstrings. They tried to play the victim. They tried every tactic in the book. And I am so proud of my team. They come out swinging with facts and evidence and data, and it's just been really good. And I have to say that a lot of the people on the judiciary, they asked some really good questions, and it was great because it gave us the opportunity to really share our side by being able to answer pointed questions. So that was that was really a huge help. And our
What
team is still going.
there was a lot of confusion, not from your organization, but from various parts of the state on the procedure for today, how much time people would get, what the process was. How did that come about at the last moment? What changed?
Emails and 300 people signing up to.
I'm sorry, that's outstanding. Congratulations on that.
They're not done, and that's the problem. They told us to stop and give them a chance to catch up. So we don't know yet what the actual number is, but the reason that they can't have to hold these for further study is because all of the testimony is not, the written testimony isn't even in the system yet. So they can't even, they haven't even finished getting the written testimony into the system. So they can't make any moves until all of that is, that's a legal thing. They can't hear these, put these bills on the floor till all of the testimony's heard. And so that was huge. I was pretty pleasantly surprised, and we do know because we track the people that sent in through our website. So we know exactly how many people have emailed and signed up for oral testimony. So, and we know we're at like 95% of the people. So we also know that won't be promoted in the local news.
Well, that's why we're here, and that's why I'm so grateful for you spending time this late at night on this issue. So, I started laughing more out of joy. To see that level of civic engagement by folks. You and I often talk about, people in the bubble. You and I are in the bubble. We spend a lot of our waking hours following what goes on there. A lot of folks, great family folks, running businesses in Rhode Island, holding on to jobs despite all sorts of financial adversity. It's difficult for most people to be able to invest the type of time that activists like you are. And I say to all of you, God bless, because we've all got our roles here. And so to see this kind of outpouring, and it is an outpouring, a tumultuous, rowdy, friendly, fun, well-informed, passionate outpouring of emotions over this is stunning, given everything that's going on in the nation. Roughly how many emails do you think you got? Where are you with those?
Well, I know that I know that we had to hold back after 16,000.
16,000 emails.
Yeah.
That's congratulations. 16,000 Rhode Islanders in the midst of a pandemic decided that it was important enough, this issue, for them to stop what they were doing and make sure they took the time to reach out. And really the only manner that they were afforded by our leaders to do that. And now you say, keep going on.
Seconds. But to go back to the rule change, so I think that they went into they didn't know what to do with us. So then they realized, we've got to do something. So it wasn't until yesterday at 4:00 that we got the press release that, said that they were cutting us back from 2 minutes to 1 minute and 15 seconds. And then there was supposed to be 3 of us testifying, then there could be 4. And they still even betrayed us on that, because it was supposed to be expert testimony, 3 minutes, and flip flop, and then all of a sudden they bring in all of the next governor lineup wannabes to all testify, and that was 4 anti-gunners in a row. so that honestly wasn't fair, and they got called out on that. But yeah, so we've been like, it's been a constant like switch game, so we didn't know what we were doing. But we rose to the challenge, I think.
No, I mean, clearly you did. So these bills, let's lay out the actual events as they occurred. When did actually the rise of the House begin, if you will, where they started contemplating and providing the quote unquote expert witness on this legislation?
1 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. Like, that's convenient for the working people, right?
Right. And again, people whose jobs and businesses have been devastated by this government shutdown. Okay. And so the procedure on this, my experience in testifying has been that you get all the government types up there first. How much time, and who were the type of folks that spoke as representatives of the government to start out with?
Well, first off, it was the bill sponsors, and they got to speak like 3 minutes per bill. So if, like, Justine Caldwell, she did a whole bunch of them, so she got to have like 9 minutes to start, and then then they got questions, and she got to answer and respond, and so her testimony went on pretty long. And then the only experts that they had was one from Providence Police, one from URI Police, and someone from State Police, I believe, but not the usuals. They were the lower down in command. They weren't the usual. It wasn't the Providence Police Chief. It wasn't the state police. Manny, it was, just like, okay, we'll send these guys over, like,
Right.
And then of course the wannabes jumped in last minute, and no one on the committee was privy to that information. So they just kind of came on the line, and they gave them time. So, it is what it is, because I still think that, we blew them out of the water with statistics and real life data. So we'll see.
What, which, did they break? I should say, did they break it down by bill, each individual bill? Because my understanding was, in terms of the testimony from regular folks, you had a minute and a half to cover all 10 bills. So literally, you were forced into commenting on that one piece of legislation that was, say, nearest and dearest to your heart. Is that how it went down for regular folks?
Folks, yes, we had a minute and 15 seconds to go over all of the bills. I got to, because I was an expert witness, I got to speak 3 minutes on all of the bills, which I didn't call them out by number. I just kind of did an overview of the, the pulse of the firearm community. That's kind of what I did, because I knew that Frank Sakosha, Mike O'Neill, and Glenn Valentine would be hitting on specific bills and data. So I kind of just went with, the whole overview of how the community was feeling as a whole, and kind of went at that angle.
Right. What, which leads to a procedural issue, and some of this stuff may sound arcane until you realize, as you earlier said, the whole process is gummed up by this kind of chaos. If in fact each person came up and randomly spoke to a particular bill, now for let's just take case in point. The bill that I'm most passionate about, obviously, is the medical records, the medical testimony in order to get a carry permit. That's the most emotional bill that speaks to me. I know that other folks have other driving forces. But if you're talking about a situation where each individual gets up and either speaks to one and then perhaps covers, in 30 seconds or less, 7 lines on every other bill, how can they possibly sort any of that out and then vote on that? It just doesn't make any sense.
Well,
did we lose you?
We did for a minute. I'm back.
Okay, cool.
So here's the real problem. The real problem is the air of arrogance up there right now. They're more or less feeling like they're just going to push these bills through because they know they have enough votes on the floor. And that actually got commented a couple times, and I don't know. I maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of thought that this was a legal process, part of the legislative process, that you're supposed to hear your people and then make your decision on whether or not these bills are worthy of hitting the floor. But they kind of have like a backwards approach up there this year with some of the, the more progressive legislators up there, and they're just more like, yeah, I guess we'll listen. We got this anyway, so let's just deal with this and just move on and get them to the floor because we know that they're gonna pass anyways, which is disgusting.
So who were the prominent, besides you mentioned some law enforcement folks, one or two legislators, obviously the bill sponsors, their testimony is already becoming notorious. And they've been caught up on a couple occasions, according to, if you will, conversation on the web, and some issues with the facts. Give us some anecdotes from that, and how did the bill sponsors lead off, and what type of substance did they actually offer?
Oh, well, Justine Caldwell started with the whole Sandy Hook story. So she went for the heartstrings. And I'll actually quite a few of them did that. But here's my problem with that. We live in Rhode Island. We work in Rhode Island. Why don't we use Rhode Island data? So even when we were specifically asked, the police chiefs, I think it was the police. No, it wasn't the police chiefs. It was one of the expert witnesses from the police department. How many AR-15s have been used to commit crimes in Rhode Island? They couldn't answer that. They couldn't answer a lot of specific questions that we had. Here again, a lot of the other side's testimony was based on facts that didn't have anything to do with Rhode Island, and they did not have the data to back up anything that they had to do with regards to Rhode Island. The reason that they want the 10-round magazine ban is, to limit to 10 rounds is because Connecticut and Massachusetts do. I kind of feel like if you're a Rhode Island legislator, that maybe you should be representing the people of Rhode Island using Rhode Island data. And that's not something that they can back up on any of this. So, that was a big hang up for me. And then the just blatant lack of understanding of firearms. I had an exchange with Jason Knight, who called me out on what was the word he said? He tried to question me on some technicalities, and machine pistol. He said machine pistols were going to be banned, and I'm like, well, you mean semi-automatic pistols? And he goes, oh yeah, well they're not going to be banned. I said, well, if you read the legislation, I said, you can clearly see that like 4 lines down from underneath the definition, it clearly states that any semi-automatic pistol with a detachable magazine, like that's all pistols, and then he goes, oh, you're going to put a bayonet on your pistol? I said, well, no, but my son's Olympic rifle is in your assault weapons ban, even though it's a single action 22, because I have put a harmonic barrel extender on it. So his rifle's a threaded barrel. Shotguns have a threaded barrel because they take a modified choke. Like he didn't know what to say because he doesn't know the mechanics of a firearm. So they're up there making these laws, putting in these definitions, and they have not a clue what they even mean, and don't even realize that they're literally banning almost every firearm that every law-abiding citizen in Rhode Island owns.
And yet here's an individual who pays his bills, and we'll share some links later on, by getting folks off on technicalities on the very crimes that he's looking to legislate over. I want to be very clear here, as I mentioned the other night when we last chatted, that Mr. Knight is performing a public service in the sense that every criminal defendant, guilty or not, is entitled to a vigorous defense. My frustration is this is a gentleman who is helping write the laws and then who profits directly, good or bad. There's that. That's a problem. It's and yet he receives copious campaign contributions from those folks who support the, if you will, the elimination of your right to bear arms, as stated in the Rhode Island Constitution, and your right to engage in self-defense, which we agreed the other night is a natural right accorded to you by birth. My understanding is that, is it Mr. Finn or Mrs. Finn? In today's, and it's clear that Jason Knight reports to Ms. Finn, Linda Finn, and that was acknowledged tonight when he gave a military-like response. Yes, sir. What did Ms. Finn have to say for herself this evening? How is Ms. Finn?
I missed Ms. Finn's testimony, but I will tell you there's quite a Twitter exchange going on right now because the Justine Caldwell actually called out Mike O'Neill from the Second Amendment Coalition, asking if he was going to conform if these laws went into place. Is he going to comply? Mm-hmm. And he kind of deferred the question because that's kind of an invasive question. So now you have Linda Finn, who's run to Twitter. She's got to get her few minutes of fame. So she's on there calling out Mike, saying that he's not going to comply and blah, blah, blah. And she did this whole exchange about it. So the problem I have with that is maybe someone should check into Linda Finn's, into her record, because Linda Finn can't abide by simple traffic laws. And now you're going to call out someone for violating your Second Amendment rights. She might think about her own, her own actions before she starts calling other people out.
Right. And just to perform a public service here, if you'd like to join in on the conversation on Twitter, Linda Finn is at Linda F. Blue. That's Linda FBLUE. If you happen to have a Twitter account or not, feel free to take time tonight to set one up, and you know what to do. Politely, in a non-threatening manner, take the opportunity to interject facts and your opinion into that conversation, because Twitter is, in fact, an open public source. The gun control has been pretty good to Ms. Finn, hasn't it? She does okay with this. Is this I've heard rumors of this, and I'll ask you to verify. Haven't been able to check them out. Does she profit from this? Is she employed by these people?
Coalition Against Gun Violence. So she only has to claim some of her lobbying salary. She doesn't have to claim all of the money that she gets as a director of Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence. But that's the other problem here, and I did bring that out in my testimony tonight, that this gun reform and this common sense gun reform and advocacy has become a really profitable business throughout the country and in Rhode Island. And we know that by the amount of money that's coming into the state. We know in the past 2 years, we've been able to trace at least $1.3 million, and then they play the shell game through all of their numerous nonprofits, and basically, let's look at this. What do they do for the community, really? I know I have nonprofits through Rhode Island Revolver and Federated Sportsmen, and we have ladies' days, youth days, fishing days. We do fundraisers for veterans. We give out scholarships. We have youth leagues, adult leagues. We do a lot of stuff. Food drives. So we're actually giving back to the community. And here they're claiming they're this big nonprofit, but all they do is political. Everything they do is political. So I really have a problem with them, claiming that they're a nonprofit, and all they do is essentially just get money to antagonize the law-abiding citizens of Rhode Island.
Right. So to me, what's happened here in a number of situations is that the political campaign process has been perverted so that individuals can create multiple entities to work on behalf of a single issue, so that the same candidates can effectively receive multiple donations from these multiple sources, there interfering not only with the spirit, but the actual limits of what's supposed to be donatable to a campaign. And a lot of this is out-of-state money, and some of it's local money, but I don't think that was the intent of the law. And, you've got these, and just to give folks just a very simple flavor, if you're a local political action committee, you can't receive money from out-of-state political action committees unless that political action committee registers here in the state of Rhode Island, has a locally accessible bank account. And the effect of that is that grassroots organizations like Brenda's are effectively blocked because they don't have the type of resources to put people on the ground to do all this accounting. The national political action committees have plenty of people. I'll use Emily's list as an example. Plenty of people in a big old office building somewhere to file in Rhode Island and to do all the paperwork and to make sure that they've got a separate political organization set up in Rhode Island. I mean, the process is so incredibly slanted by big money, and I'll use Sheldon's favorite term, dark money. Yes, it's dark money from a variety of Democratic and left of center sources that, again, are using the system to attempt to take away your right to bear arms. It really is that simple, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's that, when I look at some of the data that we've collected, it's baffling, and that's what really gets me mad, because even if you're not a gun owner and this isn't your issue, you should know that you're being deceived by these so-called nonprofits. You're being deceived by these people, and it's really bad. And I don't, sometimes, I get a little discouraged because I don't know how to fight that part of it,
Right.
Because I'm not an attorney. I'm not that knowledgeable in that aspect of things. And it just gets frustrating.
No, I understand. I'm in the same type of fight on this and other issues. You, after a while, you just feel like that you've got a group of people who control the arms of government, and that they ultimately use that control for their own personal gain. And Mr. Knight, again, is an attorney who practices criminal law and who writes the laws at the same time. I don't know how that works anywhere or anyway. Now, as you can imagine, as we talked about at length, we've got a variety of laws. This is legislative whack-a-mole. Throw it all up against the wall and see what sticks. To me, and I know different people look at each of these legislative actions differently. To me, the two most provocative bills was the legislation requiring medical disclosure in order to get a permit, and then of course the Marjorie Stoneman bill, where essentially you prevent, by not allowing permitted concealed carry holders, for whom there hasn't been a single case of abuse that we're aware of in this state's history, to not bear arms on school properties. What was the kind of testimony that was used by supporters of that legislation, and what were folks saying who opposed it?
Well, they used the same narrative they used every year, like save the children, and, they don't want the children to see firearms. And the biggest one was they're afraid that we're going to leave our concealed carry firearms in the bathroom.
Okay, wait. I've known a lot of folks in my life who, depending on the state we're in, were legally authorized to carry weapons. I have to tell you, that's just patently absurd.
like for us, being responsible gun owners and going to ranges and stuff, like that's like safety rule number one, like you don't do that. That's just like a whole bunch of accidents waiting to happen. And now, and as a concealed carry holder, we're supposed to have that firearm with it on us at all times. So now you're telling us that we need to violate our concealed carry permit in order to leave an unattended firearm in a car after we've unloaded it and potentially created another unsafe situation. So we kind of testified against that, and we're responsible. We actually have less gun accidents and commit less crimes than off-duty police officers. And I'm not discrediting the police, but we are one of the safest people in the society. And now you're gonna make us be in unsafe situations and actually make us violate, our permits and so it just doesn't make sense, but that's what we fought it with.
No, the next step, of course, and I hate to say it on there because I'll use it, we're going to have gun lockers as optional equipment on Ford F-150s because that's what you're doing effectively. You're taking a gun away from a highly trained professional. I mean, the skills you need to have and the track record you need to have to gain one of these permits is breathtaking. So you're taking, for the most part, a gun away from an individual who's got control over it, who understands the awesome responsibility of carrying a firearm, understands clearly its operation through and through, and instead you're going to leave it in a car which can be easily stolen, including ammunition. That is perhaps, in a life filled with stupid from our Rhode Island government, that may be perhaps the most moronic thing I've ever heard in my life. It's wow. Wow. How does that make any sense to any sentient human being?
That's because it goes back to them not understanding what they're legislating. They don't understand it. This is not about Rhode Island being safe. It's not. This is about an agenda. And, the more we listen to their side of the testimony, and the more we look at the way they're writing the bills, this is not about making Rhode Island safer. Because if they cared about making Rhode Island safer, they'd start enforcing the laws that are already on the books. Let's start there. There's so many laws that they don't enforce. And then they let the violent criminals out, and then they end up being repeat offenders. And those are the repeat offenders are the ones that actually escalate up to the point where they're committing murder. So, let's start there, and we would be all on board with that.
Now this bill, by the way, my understanding is supported by Mr. Shikarchi, right? He is the now speaker, the wise man who heads our house. That's my understanding. Is that your understanding as well?
Is going to support and not support. I'll tell you who wants it is the Senate president. The Senate president, this was actually the bill that they used to negotiate so that he could continue being Senate president.
Oh, okay. So can I just take a moment and try to interject a moment of levity by paraphrasing, I think, one of the great moments in American movie history, really a fabulous film noir that echoed the sentiments of so many of the issues surrounding us as adults. And of course, I'm talking about the movie Billy Madison. Mr. Ruggiero, what you've just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. Does that pretty much sum it up?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure he didn't want that out, but, here's the problem. He trusted some of the progressives, and they're doing their victory dance with it. So he's been betrayed by them. So, it's kind of like they're eating their own up there. I don't know. It's just, I just can't understand how some of these people have so much power up there because, they're dangerous up there to the whole, to the whole democracy. The whole is just, it's just unbelievable, some of the stuff that's happening.
What, in terms of the medical records issue, I've got to believe that there were some pretty emotional responses to that. What was the sentiment? I'm curious because I was only looking here part of the testimony because we've been on the air and all that stuff. I'm going to go back over this, but the testimony. By what means did the bill sponsors and/or any of the talking heads justify an invasion of privacy in terms of in a search, a witch hunt for mental health issues? Did they justify that legislation? Was there any even attempt?
They did an attempt. They kind of fluffed it off to that's what's going to be happening nationally anyways.
Oh, okay.
They didn't. Yeah. And I have to honestly say, I didn't get to hear a lot of that testimony because I was in the middle of another conversation at that moment. But I do know they did touch base on it, and it was more like it was, they want to follow suit with the national bill that's coming down. So,
Wow.
but I gotta say, a lot of people that called in from our side are definitely against that, and they're against it for all the right reasons. That people won't get treatment. It's open-ended. It doesn't say, like what do they consider a mental illness that prevents you from having a firearm? Is it bulimia? Is it grief counseling? Is it Wellbutrin? Is it postpartum depression? Is it OCD? Where does that end as far as prohibiting someone from owning a firearm?
Right.
And so far that has not been answered for us.
Wow. Some great comments. Jen Hurst, of course, an attorney herself, is school grounds homeschooling. Jen Hurst, how many CCWs actually are at schools at any given moment? At most, someone picks up and drops off our kid or gets sick and someone picks it up. Otherwise, at most, teachers and staff. Mr. Patterson, who I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, I've asked Linda Finn to post her IRS Form 990. She refuses. Interesting. When you... The devil's in the details on those 990s. 990s are public record. For folks unfamiliar with them, and thank you, Mr. Patterson, for that question. It's an outstanding one. For folks not familiar with 990s, 990s are effectively a 1040 for a not-for-profit. They reflect expenses. Administrative expenses are broken out. But on a relatively high level of detail, compensation for the most highly compensated individuals in that organization, as well as people on the board, is broken out. And they are public record, and you have to file them. So we're going to do our own little legwork on that. For folks who haven't listened to the show, every year or two we do a dramatic reading of Form 990s from around the great state of Rhode Island, a number of them politically motivated organizations, and we do a dramatic reading along with interpretive dance. It's quite the spectacle. I do participate in that, by the way, Brenda. So we are now Mr. Finn or Sir Finn is on now on. Sorry, I can't. Listen, it's a silly little moments like that. You gotta have a little bit of dark. Exactly. You being a responsible, mature adult handles it in exactly the manner that it should be. Station management here, however, is not quite so mature, as I'm sure a number of you have realized that by now. I guess it's really hard to say, but how are you feeling after all this? By the way, thanks for coming on tonight. You're on for a half hour, 45 minutes. Your level of personal sacrifice for the people in the variety of communities that you serve is astonishing. What's your takeaway from tonight personally? Are you feeling good about? Are you feeling good in the best way possible given the type of challenges you're facing? Are you happy people stepped up the way they did?
I do. It's nights like this that I love my community even more because so many of them did step up. So many of them have reached out to us. they emailed, they called, I know that they've been trying to contact their legislators, and they were testifying tonight. And even if they weren't comfortable, they still did it.
Right.
And that makes me to be very proud of every single one of them, and proud to be a part of this community, which is why I fight so hard, because I love these people.
Mm-hmm.
And but as far as how I'm feeling, I don't know, because this is a tough call, because they're not playing by the rules.
No.
They're making up their rules as they go. They're not playing fair for the Rhode Islanders. We're not their best interest. I have to shout out to all of the reps that are on our side and have worked very hard to help us and educate us a little bit more on some of the ins and outs, and making sure that our voices get heard and actually listening to us. That's been really important this year. In a year that, we've been COVID bound, that some of these legislators have really stepped up and really sincerely heard our voice. And that's really good.
Don't be afraid. I know we always accidentally forget somebody, so I apologize in advance. But we as a state can be pretty brutal on our legislative bodies, brutal, and a lot of that is legitimate frustration and exhaustion. But feel free. Who are some of the men and women who step up routinely to in the defense of the rights of folks to bear arms?
Well, we have our usuals, which is Mike Chippendale and
Yep.
Rob Cartocci and Sherry Roberts, and you have George Nardone. There's just so many of them, and some have come out of the woodwork this year that really have stepped up too. And I don't like naming all of them, only because a lot of times if we mention a name, they become a target from the
Right.
progressives. So I got to try and keep them off the radar, because they were super important to us, but I also don't want to hang them up in any rhetoric.
Fair enough. Fair enough. This doesn't end it tonight. There is a return engagement slated, if you will, with the now today. My understanding was the House, correct? We've got a return engagement. It hasn't been scheduled. You can be sure that all the individuals from the 2A community will find out as close to the opening conversation that is possible. No stone will be unturned in the efforts to prevent folks from testifying or engaging with your Rhode Island State Senate. But when Monday comes around, we still need folks to make phone calls, polite phone calls. We still need people to sign up to testify in front of the Senate. We still need people to just do the right thing at whatever level they can, don't we?
Just so that we're planning a candidate night on March 31st. So if anybody is interested in running for House or Senate, we are going to be having a clinic. We've actually had quite a few people step up and want to run against some of these people, which is fabulous. I want to thank Linda Finn and Justine Caldwell, because they've been the driving force behind that. So, thanks for that. I appreciate that. So it's been so much so that now we have to have a candidate night, and we're going to be educating them on getting involved and helping them get their campaign started, and doing a little bit of, campaign strategy with them. So we'll be announcing that as soon as we have all the details together.
Well, and again, we'll take the opportunity this week to apply more pressure to our freshly minted governor to make sure that he's aware of how the people really feel. Well, again, Brenda, you spent a lot more time than even we'd asked for tonight. Get a good night's sleep. Have some quality time tomorrow. Have that extra cup of coffee. All right, fair enough. Go sit out on the porch and convince with nature. Just you deserve it. The whole crew deserves it. For all the people who invested time over the last few weeks and extended themselves, you're heroes to all of us. You are heroes of civil liberties here on the coalition, and we wish you nothing but the best. So thanks for joining us. No, hey, listen, we're going to have this conversation around this weekend. We're going to try and get a hold of Ms. Moffett so we can just get her reflection as well. And we want people to understand that there is media in this town which is dedicated to getting the word out, getting their opinions out when, let's just say, other folks are not so forthcoming. We'll just leave it at that. Regardless of what the other folks do, we'll always be here. So it's an honor, quite frankly, to at some level serve on the field of political battle with all of you. It really is. You grace us and you make us better by joining us. All right, buddy? All right. Feel free when you wake up sometime Sunday, give me a call. All right, buddy? Have a good night and a good night to all. Folks, we are the Coalition Loud and Proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media. We're going to take a quick break, and hopefully we'll get Ms. Moffett on as well. She's had a full and rewarding evening in her employ, so we're kind of stretching this for folks. But, we want to give you an opportunity to hear from people in your community who are advocating on behalf of you and give them an opportunity to provide their reflection. Hey, folks, we're at coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, and, of course, as always, on the mighty, mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio. If you can like us or follow us there, we'd be grateful. It gives us a little bit extra ammunition, if you will, in getting messages like this out above the noise of government-sponsored media. Have a good night. Hopefully, we'll be back in a few minutes. If we don't catch Ms. Moffett tonight, we will have her on at some point tomorrow, but hang in there. We'll be right back, I hope.